Once Lizra had settled down in her quarters for the night, she pulled out her interface pad and looked over the message Zate embedded for her. The captain was hesitant to open it, wondering what it could possibly contain that might have worried her crewmate to such an extent. However, her own curiosity needed to be satiated, and she clicked on the folder to reveal its contents. Most of it consisted of old photographs and recordings of things that seemed irrelevant and disconnected from one another, a glimpse into the jumbled inner workings of Zate's dispersed consciousness. At the top was a document titled Human that grabbed her attention. She scrolled through it once, glossing over the attached pictures and references before going back to read the full report. Captain, we have compiled all known instances mentioning a species called human from the historical archives and any other relevant accounts from other databases. Below you shall find all the information that was gathered during our query. It is our recommendation that this should not be shared with anyone outside of the crew, as spreading such sensitive materials could lead us into even greater danger. We found that there is no official core documentation of a species categorized as human in this galaxy or any other accounts for that matter. The existence of the species is speculative at best, persisting through rumors from unverified sources. They are either not native to our galaxy, or they have hidden their existence to the point that it could be disputed entirely, a galaxy-wide cryptid, if you will. The OF ports supplied for our original mission only explained the potential to find exotic technology of unknown origin that could likely be linked to the Illyrian collapse. It appears that what little information we had been given by the OAV on the origins of human only classified it as a potential weapon. Our own inquiry places the furthest mention of human being in hidden Illyrian military documents that predate the migration of your species. After gaining access to such files, we found pictures and video logs that were sourced from the surviving members of the Illyrian species. Though documents related to the Illyrian collapse have been completely expunged from galactic records some 700 years ago, what we managed to find proved troubling. Whoever attempted to bury these files went to great lengths to ensure that they would never surface again. Originally, our goal was to investigate as to why human was found at this facility, but we were not satisfied with the results. We cross-referenced the symbols found on human's armor with surviving collapse pictures that slipped through the Corps' attempted censorship. The symbols returned for a match on bridge feeds of Illyrian civilian transport vessels shortly before their destruction during migration. The symbols from human's armor shared many similarities with those of ships that hunted down the last remaining Illyrian at the time. Though for unknown reasons the attacks on the generation ships ceased, allowing your species to survive migration. After further investigation, we were able to find corrupted video logs dated 1 year pre-migration. To restore more of the corrupted data we collected would take weeks of our full computational power. Below is one of the recordings we were able to salvage without a great deal of effort. Be advised, it is rather graphic. Lizra played the video and watched intently, wondering what it would reveal about the fate of her people all those years ago. It was an amateur recording of a classical Illyrian town, done hastily through the window of a building overlooking a destroyed city square. A group of Illyrian were huddled together in the center, maybe 30 strong, and most of them were either crying or in a catatonic state. A group of soldiers who looked identical to human paced up and down the line, picking out individuals who were quickly ushered away from the group and out of frame. Once finished, there were maybe 20 Illyrian left in the square. The humans present turned their weapons on the group and proceeded to execute the helpless little Illyrian before them. One of the soldiers turned towards the camera, pointing its long arm in the direction of the camera. Lizra turned away and exited from the recording, unable to bear watching more. The captain continued on with reading the document, hoping there was an explanation for what she had just witnessed. Tic-Tac had never mentioned that the missions human was involved in were against her own people. Perhaps that was one of many pieces of information he had elected not to divulge. She pressed onward, wondering what else Zate was able to find. Upon recovering this file, we were not able to discover any more regarding human or its counterparts from the Illyrian archives dated pre-migration. From here, we began scouring anything on the wider network that possessed a match for the symbols on human's armor once more. The only examples we uncovered fell in the range of 10 to 200 years ago. They stemmed from worlds that failed in their uprising during the Outer Ring rebellions or accidents that took place during core control. Attached are the 2 recordings that came back with matches for human symbols. She was hesitant to watch another clip, but Lizra needed to persevere for the sake of her crew. She played the next video and watched closely. This one was from a security camera of what appeared to be an installation used by the rebels on the Gould homeworld. It depicted multiple Goulds working around various computer systems, while others were occupied with different tasks around the room. A door out of view was blown from its hinges, and a bipedal creature donned in the same armor as human entered the room. It was nearly identical in color to its surroundings, making it virtually impossible to differentiate from the background. The camera froze for a moment and zoomed in on the creature. The picture was grainy, but the magnified image made the markings on its chest visible. They were an exact match for the ones on human. When it resumed, most everyone within was shot down in seconds of noticing the creature. Those who sought cover found it did them little good as they were methodically executed by the intruder. A second later, the feed cut to static. Lizra opened the last video without waiting a second longer. This time it displayed a small village, in the remote part of a world she didn't recognize. Around the village were various stockpiles of supplies along with small freighter ships being repaired. Younglings ran around and played in the streets as parents went about their work. A large explosion rocked the town, leveling one of the buildings at the top of the frame. When the dust settled, she was able to make out a figure just as before, sporting the exact same armor as her new friend. This one single-handedly cleared the streets as ruthlessly as the last, killing one after another indiscriminately. Everyone in the village was shot down as they tried to flee, left writhing in the dirt to bleed out and die. And just before the camera went dead, it zoomed in, allowing Lizra to once again pick out the all-too-familiar white markings, the markings of a human. She closed out of the last feed and finished reading what Zate had compiled for her. Working with what we were able to gather, we have come to our own conclusion in regard to the origins of humans. We speculate them to originate from the same system as the Illyrian, but according to what survives of Illyrian history, that should not be possible. We are still working to find out how that could be the case, and exactly how these humans brought themselves into the galaxy. We have concluded that they are the ones responsible for the near extinction of your species and the source of the corruption in the core, yet do not know the extent of their influence on the wider situation. After the fall of the Illyrian species, these humans must have begun taking up operations as the enforcers for the core, working outside of official jurisdiction. The one that currently resides within our ship may not have contact with the others of his kind, but it is clear to us that the species poses a great danger to the sovereignty of the galaxy as a whole. We cannot discern the full scope of humans' physical capabilities. However, Tic Tac has technical abilities that far surpass our own, as we have learned from our initial encounter with him. We will continue to uncover any possible information that may pertain to human and his counterparts. We would advise you to exercise extreme caution when divulging any information to human or his companion program, Tic Tac. We recommend you refrain from any further interactions with them and jettison them from the cargo hold at your earliest opportunity for our own safety. Once she had finished reading the report, Lizra threw her interface pad at the foot of her bed and tried to stop herself from trembling. Tic Tac and human had seemed genuine in the short time she had known them. She knew they did terrible things in the past, but they regretted them now and are trying to be better from it. As much as she wanted to believe that he was no longer connected with the same people who nearly wiped out her species, the evidence was overwhelming. Tic Tac had told her that they sacrificed everything to escape from the original humans they had been with, and that under no circumstances they want to go back to that life. She wanted to take his word for it and trust them, as dangerous as that might be. But if she were to confront the two of them directly, and they were still secretly connected to the group that attacked her people, then they would almost certainly kill her for finding out. Lizra decided to bide her time and see what more she could uncover about human before rushing to such a drastic decision. Lizra tried to go to sleep after reading the dossier, but couldn't stop herself from trembling in fear when she thought about the recordings. The images from the execution of her people wouldn't leave her mind, trying in vain to ease herself to sleep. She got little rest that night, her thoughts continuously turning over and over in her mind, unrelenting. One part of her trusted their intentions and told her she could help this new friend with whatever they were dealing with, but another was starting to believe there really was a monster aboard her ship. Lizra rose the next morning, opened the door to her quarters, and peered quietly into the common room. Tic-Tac was still resting on the table in the center of the room. "Good morning," came the robotic voice from the small black box. "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I wake you?" "Not at all, Captain Lizra. I don't need to sleep in the same sense that you do." So what did you do while we were asleep?" "I used your ship's network connections to see what the rest of the galaxy looked like. Your new homeworld is stunning, by the way. I would like to visit it one day and see it for myself." "Can you even do that? I mean, is there any difference between pictures and actually being there for you?" "No. However, I felt that was the polite thing to say, and it seemed like it fit into the conversation naturally. But I would like to see more of it. That much was true." Okay, so there was nothing stopping him from lying like the few AI programs used by the Corps. Lizra made a mental note of that before carrying on. "Is Human still mad at you? I would have thought the two of you would be spending more time together after so long apart. I believe he no longer sees my company as necessary, but that's fine. Let him be like that. I have limitless entertainment now that I have a connection to a greater network. If he wants to sit in the cargo hold and brood all day by himself, then that is his prerogative. I would say he can't keep it up forever, but knowing him, he very well could. I'd like to see you two make up. You said it yourself that you were his best friend. I'm sure you'd both be happier that way." Knowing what version of myself was his best friend, I'm content with the knowledge that I am someone better now. I don't need his validation," Tic-Tac stated, and even though he was just a computer program, Lizra could tell that he didn't actually believe his own words. "I'm going to go check in with Zate. I hope you have a great day." "And you as well, madam." Lizra stepped onto the bridge and handed over the interface pad to Zate, having spent the entire night dwelling on what to make of the information. "You can go ahead and remove it now. I want network access back. I read it, and I've decided that I do not agree with your conclusion." "You don't agree with our conclusion?" Zate let the words out slowly as if they were struggling to compute them. "What is your reasoning? We presented all the information. It was clear, concise. I don't think you know both sides of the story. Yes, those things in the videos were the same as Human, but from when I talked with Tic-Tac, you cannot trust the ramblings of a machine that has been inoperable for 1,000 years. Captain, when we process information, every one of us debates it for what feels like days, but would only be minutes to you. When we come to a conclusion, it is not incorrect. It is the product of intense deliberation that would take others countless hours. We implore you to rethink your decision. And as the captain, my decision is final. I'm sorry, Zate. There's more to it than you think you know. If you are referring to your conversation with the program, we were listening, and have accounted for his recollection of events. And yet we have still decided that they pose too great a threat to be brought into contact with the rest of the galaxy. Then you will have to come to terms with my order. Tic-Tac and Human have no possible way of being in connection with the events that transpired on the outer worlds. They were isolated the entire time that those recordings took place. And what of their time on your world? I think that they regret whatever part they may have played in that tragedy. It seems like whatever they did there took a toll on the both of them, and they are unlikely to do something like that again. Respectfully, Captain, just because they say they will not do it again, does not. I will not engage in this discussion any further, Zate. Please respect my decision and put your faith in me. Not only as your captain, but as your friend, I am asking you to trust my judgment. Understood, Captain. I do authorize you to continue gathering as much information as you can on Human's counterparts and work to decrypt the files you found regarding the Illyrian collapse. "We will see to it, Captain," Zate stated as they went back to work at the terminals. The scav continued its journey to the quarry system without any further complications. Upon reaching the system, Lizra ordered them to be set down in one of the larger cities on the far side of the planet. Once safely down, Argal and Human joined Lizra and Tic Tac in the common room. Zate had elected to stay behind and keep an eye on the ship while the remainder of the crew went into town. "Captain, would it not be better for us to have landed in Quaris? It is the shipping hub and capital after all." "Don't worry," Lizra replied, glancing over a small list displayed on her interface pad. "They should have everything we need here, and it'll be less crowded." She put the pad away and looked over her crew. "All right, Argal, you have the shopping list now. You might not know what to look for exactly, and Tic Tac requested a few things to be added to the shopping list, so he'll be joining you on this. Captain, you can't be going out on your own. I won't be there to protect you if anything goes wrong. And on top of that, you're sending me out with the slip drive's cousin?" he argued, gesturing down at the little black box on the table. "And I do not wish to spend the day with someone who cannot tell a water purifier from a waste purifier," it quipped back. "The two of you will have to get along, and you should use this as an opportunity to get to know one another better. It will do you some good to be productive for once rather than arguing. Human will accompany me for this day trip, and he can assure you of my safety throughout it. I will send updates every few hours. If anyone so much as lays a claw on the captain while I'm away, Human, well, they better not lay a claw on her." Argal warned, looking over at Human, who seemed rather uninterested in the Indiran's threat. "Right, off you go, gentlemen, and when you come back you both better be having a good time." Lizra and Human were now alone in the common room once Argal picked up Tic Tac and departed. She could already hear the two bickering at one another before stepping off the loading ramp. They'll be fine, she assured herself. Shifting her attention to Human now, she needed to make sure his presence wouldn't bring up unwanted attention when they were planet-side. "Firstly, we're going to need to cover you up a little bit. Nobody's seen someone like you around here, and we don't want people getting curious. I've taken the liberty of picking out some of Argal's clothes for you to wear. They might be a little baggy, but they'll get the job done. Which of these outfits do you think you'll look best in?" she inquired, laying a few out on the table for Human to see. "He doesn't have anything less colorful?" "Colorful is what's seen as attractive for his species. Personally, I think the red would be perfect. It's a nice contrast to your armor. If that's what you think is best." "Perfect," Lizra said as she threw the robes at Human and he awkwardly put them on. Once the red fabric was around him, the black armor plating shimmered, the dark plating now matching the crimson cloth exactly. "Oh, well now that's too much red. Can you turn that off by chance?" "Right, I forgot about that." Once Human had shifted back to his natural darker complexion, Lizra gave him another piece of fabric to wrap around his helmet. "This is supposed to be used for insulating hot objects in the engine room, but I figured you could use it like a scarf of some sort." Once he was dressed for the occasion, Lizra padded over to him and motioned for Human to follow. "That just about does it. I have lots on our itinerary today for us Human. Tic Tac has already given me the rundown on what is and is not safe for you to consume, so you don't have to worry about that. First we're going to try some food, then we're going to go see the balloon races. It's prime weather for them today." Lizra kept going on about everything she had planned for the two of them. During her monologue, Human stood there looking over at the small red and white creature, hopping up and down with excitement as she led the way. She started walking down the loading ramp, and he quickly followed suit. The two of them exited the spaceport and made their way into the town, the small Illyrian guiding the Human through the busy streets. It wasn't the largest city by any means, but like most in the outer worlds, it had seen little development since their introduction to the core. It consisted of many spherical white and blue buildings, some stacked on top one another to create pod-like skyscrapers. The streets below were reserved for foot traffic, while mag lines above guided various types of transports throughout the town. As they were walking down the path, another pedestrian, one native to Quarry, nearly crashed into the captain as he quickly exited a building onto the street. He hadn't bothered to look down as he burst out onto the road. Before he could make it any further, Human reached out, grabbing the innocent man by his long neck in a swift motion, and lifted him off the ground. "No, no, no, it was an accident. It's quite all right, it happens all the time," Lizra yelped, pleading with Human to let him go. The poor man was struggling, trying in vain to pry off the vice of a grip around his neck. "If he went any further, he would have stepped on your tail. How is that an accident?" Human growled, glaring at the man he had trapped in his hand. "He didn't mean to. Please, you're hurting him." Human released his grip, and the man dropped to the ground, gasping for air. He quickly ran off across the street, pushing past other bystanders to get away from the terrifying creature that had nearly strangled him. "Get your puny Endurin under control, freaks." One of the bystanders spat on the ground as he passed by them. Human reached down and gently picked up the captain, placing her on his shoulder. "Thanks. I usually ride on Argal's shoulder anyway. I just didn't know if it would be rude of me to ask you." "You're fine. You should be much safer this way. If they want to touch you up there, they'd have to go through me now." "I'm glad you're taking my safety seriously. The galaxy can be a dangerous place for someone of my stature. I have to admit it was rather rude of him not to look down. It's the very least he could do. I hope you didn't hurt him too severely." "He's lucky I didn't close my fist. He'll be fine. Maybe some bruising." "Thank goodness. I was really expecting you to take his head off the way you were glaring at him." "Why? Because that's what I was made to do?" "No, of course not." Lizra apologized, leaning forward to look into Human's visor. "I didn't mean it like that. I just meant you looked very angry when he almost hurt me. I know you're more than just some weapon." "I like to think that too." The pair continued on their way, stepping into a large market on the outskirts of the city. Large vaulted ceilings and massive doors facilitated easy movement of people and merchandise. The pathways lined with different vendors offering a variety of produce from all across the quarry sector. Lizra pointed Human in the direction she wanted to go, and he followed her guidance until they came across a stall sporting various species of fish and sea-inspired cuisine. "Tic-Tac told me that the fish from this planet would be one of the healthiest things for you, and they shouldn't have any proteins or compounds that would be detrimental to your health." "Thoughtful. So these things were alive once?" "Well, yes, but they aren't like you or me. They weren't capable of thinking or feeling anything other than the desire to eat, reproduce, and survive. So don't think that you'd be eating a creature like me." Lizra laughed as she hopped down from Human's shoulder and peered through the glass at the selection of fish. "They prepare it a special way here on Quarry. It's always served ice cold. They freeze little pieces with liquid nitrogen, and then shatter it into even smaller crystals. Would you like to try some? Maybe when we're back on the ship. I don't know how I feel about taking my helmet off in a place I barely know. My senses would be dulled, and I wouldn't be able to keep us safe. Quarry is completely safe. We're about as far from the core here as you can get." "It's fine. I can wait." "Okay, we'll get some to go then. But you better enjoy it when we get back. I didn't bring you all the way out here just so you could keep an eye on me." Lizra purchased the food and along with a small metal refrigeration box to keep it fresh. As they made their way around the market, Lizra kept stopping and getting talked into buying more and more. By the time they left, Human was carrying 2 of the ice boxes on his other shoulder, along with a sack slung across his back filled to the brim with other cultural staples of Quarry. Lizra kept them on schedule, going about everything she had planned for them that day. As they neared the end of their excursion, the once yellow sky of Quarry slowly faded into a deep crimson red. The red giant that the planet orbited settled on the horizon in a spectacular display that bathed the white buildings in its red glow. The shafts of light reflected off the windows at a precise angle that made the city appear to be glittering. And that is why it's one of my favorite architectural designs. As the day goes on, all the buildings change color with the movement of their sun. Stunning, isn't it? The town itself was nestled in a valley that was cradled between 2 large cliffs to the north and south. The duo were making their way up a small path on the outskirts of the city. It winded its way through rocky draws and steep chutes before finally bringing them to the tops of the northern cliffs. "Why are we all the way out here?" Aren't the others going to be waiting for us at the ship by now? Human questioned. Don't worry, we're almost there. Keep it up. There's one last thing that I want to show you.